This is the Twin Cities Real Estate Investing Show. Real stories, real success in Twin Cities real estate. Join your hosts, Adam Tafel and Tim Swierczek, as they dive into the world of Twin Cities real estate investing. Together, they share valuable insights and practical tips to help both new and seasoned investors navigate the Minneapolis-St. Paul market. With a focus on relatable stories from real people, this show will empower you with the knowledge and confidence to thrive in your investing journey. Guys, take it from here.
What's up, Tim?
Hey, man.
Ford Wagner was a fun guy to talk to.
Yeah.
Like, how many people have we ended the episode with, like, okay, so you want to come back in like 3 weeks, you know?
Yeah, I think the real thing with Ford that you'll see, and we have other guests who have been like this, but he is driven every day into real estate, right? Like, I could see him just pouring his life into it, basically. And it's obvious online. It's obvious when you talk to him. You know, he's got it all in terms of the energy, and he's willing to talk and share about what's went well and what hasn't. And I appreciate that about any of our guests who are sharing like real meat, you know, of what's going on.
Yeah.
I just really like that. And thank you all of you who do that. We appreciate it.
Ford is like a younger guy, probably maybe the youngest person we've interviewed.
Yeah, I think Michael was probably pretty young too.
Oh, yeah, Michael. Well, no, Michael was 27, 29.
I never asked Ford how old he is.
I just think it tracks that, whatever, we don't have to speculate his age right now on the podcast. I bet he's not older than 25, just based on how old he would have been when he reached out to me. Maybe.
Yeah.
Anyways, yeah, he's got great energy, and he's like he's funny, you know? And he is a house flipper and, you know, kind of has
and a landlord, right? We didn't get into it. We will get into it in the future. By the way, this is probably half of a repeat episode. He's going to have a second episode for sure.
But we get into like managing contractors. You know, Ford came in driving like an F-350 who took up half my driveway, and he's wearing boots. And so and his name's Ford, for gosh sakes. So, yeah, good, actual, usable information, not just motivating this episode. So here's Ford. Investors, if a deal gets messy, call Network Title. They can handle the BRRRR, the 1031, mixed use, commercial, whatever it takes, so you can close on time. Mentor of mine, guy who I really respect, Kirk Duckwall, says working with Network Title is kind of like having another personal assistant. That's how on the ball these people are. Network Title, complex deals made simple. Link in the show notes. One of the hardest parts of investing is finding a solid property manager. I've worked with plenty over the years. Some are better than others. Earlier this year, I did a 10-unit deal where John and his team at RPM Viking handled the management for our mutual out-of-state client. They were professional, they were responsive, they delivered exactly as promised. Now they are my #1 management referral, and I'm proud to have them supporting the show. Learn more at rpmviking.com. Use the code TCREI300 for $300 off maintenance services when you sign up with RPM Viking as your property manager. Thanks for sponsoring the show. Welcome to the Twin Cities Real Estate Investing Show, brought to you by Shook. Shook is the all-in-one platform to help you manage your rentals, built for real estate investors just like us. Shook offers lightning-fast ACH payments. I just got a few properties set up with Shook, and I'm getting paid way faster than my old service. They can also do custom things, like if you need to pay a manager a percentage, they can take care of that. The staff at Shook, Oliver, and the team are just so awesome to work with, and we want to thank Shook for sponsoring the podcast. At $5 per unit per month, it's totally worth checking out shookrentals.com to book a live demo. In the show notes, we're also offering a discount of 20%. Use the code TCREI20. Thank you.
What's going on here? They just went the other way.
I could do it again, but she's 15 now.
I could see how that would work, yeah.
It was good. Actually, I mean, it wasn't intentional to start, right? It was just this accent, and all of a sudden you're like, oh, hey, this is pretty cool.
Right.
What's up, Ford Wagner? We're live, dude. Thanks for coming on.
Absolutely.
Ford popped up in my Instagram feed, and I'm like, oh, I've heard about that guy. See if he wants to do the pod. And you didn't ask hardly any questions. You're like, cool. See you there.
It's just kind of how we do it. Somebody pops in and just on to the next one. Let's go talk about real estate. I love talking about real estate. It's my whole life, like it is for you guys. And
Yeah.
if you give me the opportunity, I'll stay here till tomorrow morning. Just to keep talking.
Fair enough.
Yeah, we've never really sat here with someone and struggled to fill time, have we? What should we ask them next?
Well, actually,
okay. There's a few episodes that we haven't aired.
Sure.
Just because I guess it was kind of like that. But for the overwhelming majority.
Yes.
This is episode 60, by the way. Tim.
Is it? Okay.
And that's what Adam told me that. I was shocked. That's awesome. You guys have been banging them out for that long.
Yeah, and actually we started at least 6 months before that just doing live videos so that we don't call them podcasts and they're not part of this show per se, but we've been doing it about a year and a half to almost, at least a year and a half, if not longer.
It'll be 2 years.
Months.
It'll be 2 years this spring, for sure. Well, and then I joke with Ford. I'm like, Ford came through a Bigger Pockets lead for me in like 2019, I think. You probably went to biggerpockets.com and you're like, find an agent. And then he never called me back. So I'm like,
you actually called me? I know you messaged me that. I just figured you never even called me.
I'm sure I reached out to you because at the time, this would have been 2019. I would have been pretty hungry for business.
Sure.
And I'm like, so it was a waste of $60. So you have to do my podcast.
Well, I was going to reply to that on Instagram. Like, bring me a deal. I'll make you way more than $60 now. Just bring me a deal. We'll get you a nice fee.
Yeah. So for those who don't know Ford, Ford's a flipper, right? Do you do any buy and hold or is it all flip?
Yep, I have a buy and hold portfolio. We're at 14 doors.
Nice.
Composed of all residential. So I have a triplex, duplex, and the rest is single family.
Yep.
But then a lot of flips as well. A little bit of assignments and stuff like that. We wholesale a little bit.
Sure. Anytime you're in that game, you kind of have to, right? You come across a deal that doesn't work for you, but it has meat in it.
Yeah, it's just kind of a mixed bag, It's all just depends on what we're currently working on. What does our capital look like? What's our labor look like? Can we take on another deal right now? Do we want to take on another deal right now?
Yeah.
Or do we just want to get it off? So.
Yeah, we'll obviously get back to some beginning stuff, but since we're on that, didn't you say before we started recording that you have 13 deals right now? Is that correct? Is that what you said?
I have 14 rentals.
Okay.
13 deals. I don't have 13 deals
Okay.
going right now.
14 doors, he said.
14
No,
doors.
yeah, but before we started recording, I thought you said you have 14 flips going on. Maybe it was 13 you did this year. Is that right?
No, we'll see how the year ends up. Believe it or not, there's probably 5 or so that are up in the air to see if we'll get through the table or across the table for the end of the year, but we should end up around 35.
35 flips for the year.
Yeah.
That's a big number.
Yeah.
That's an organization. How many people in general does it take to do something like that?
So there's myself at the brass tacks of it. There's myself, and I really manage all of our construction.
Yeah.
I have a partner who manages 90% of our acquisition stuff. Really comes in from in-house. The rest of our deal flow is made up from other wholesalers or agents around the Twin Cities that just kind of know what we do and what we can offer their clients when that type of property pops up. So,
yeah.
And then underneath that, on my side, there's a team of 4 or 5 guys in-house that are just laborers constantly.
Yeah, and then subs as you need it.
And then subbing out as we need it.
Okay.
So on the acquisition side, similar makeup of employment. I think there's 4 or 5 cold caller VAs we have that really run the show over there.
Yeah.
Cool. Well, let's go back in time a little bit. How did we get here for it? We don't have to spend too much time, but like, where'd you grow up and how do you get to the point where you're flipping 35 homes in a year?
Yeah. Where'd I grow up? I grew up in Hugo, Minnesota. Went to Stillwater High School. We're not going to do the whole life story because it's a crazy one, but
That's fair.
Tell us the craziest part.
I was not a good kid. I'll leave it at that. I was kind of a reckless child. Didn't like authority, whether it was my parents, whether it was the principal, whether it was the law. So we were always just a little bit rebellious. But I've always been entrepreneurial mindset, business mindset. My father owned a small business growing up, so I was, kind of always right next to that. He owns a salsa company, right?
Yeah.
So if
Is it Lisa's salsa? Is that right? What is the name of it?
you got to cut that out.
Okay. What was the name of it? I used to know.
Minnesalsa.
Minnesota.
Like Minnesota, but Minnesota.
Yeah, I used to have
right?
it in my refrigerator.
So,
Yeah, a bunch of it actually. I just couldn't remember the name. Yeah.
well, it's available at all stores in the metro, so you can go support the family. But I should have brought you guys a jar.
Yeah, yeah.
That would've been nice. I wrote it down. We'll put in the show notes.
There you go.
Yeah.
But if I remember back to my childhood, right, I'm probably 9, 10, 11, 12, and every weekend I'm in the grocery store sampling salsa, selling jars, right? So I think like that was like my first little oomph into a hustle, right? And learning sales, learning how to talk to people, which, at the time I enjoyed doing, but I'm sure there were days I didn't want to go. But I look at like what developed me into today. Those are some of the things, right?
Sweet.
And then, but fast forward through all that and tried going to college. That didn't work out. Had some medical stuff. I battled addiction for a long time. And once I finally got through all that, I had to kind of reset the wheel at probably about 20. But had no idea what I wanted to do, right? So I got a sales job, hated it. And after I dropped out of school, I had moved back into my parents' house, and I'm in my childhood bedroom where every 20-year-old wants to be, alone, with all their friends at college still hooping it up, and you're just kind of sitting there. So I just started reading books, and the first book that I think is a very common starting place for a lot of people in our industry, Rich Dad, Poor Dad, taught me a concept that just kind of blew my mind that you're never taught in school, and that was kind of the spark that started it all of diving into real estate and really anything finance and business related. So from that point on, it was reading every real estate book I could get my hands on, Bigger Pockets, podcast, the YouTube, the forums, whatever it might be. And parallel with that, my father's in the title insurance business. He's not involved in this side of the industry at all. It's strictly title insurance. But with that, I got a job at the title company doing abstracting. So I was getting familiar with the industry on that side of things, but also seeing agents come into the office all the time, right? And you start to see, this guy pulls up in the Escalade, this guy pulls up in the Porsche. What do they do, right? So it's always kind of asking the question, how's this guy got money? How's this guy got money? Well, they're an investor. They own a bunch of properties. Well, I want to own a bunch of properties, right? So this is all kind of going down at the same time, right? So I'm trying to just educate myself about the industry and how it works. And, at some point in there, I figured out what I wanted to do. A was house hack. So I went and got my real estate license. My first deal was a duplex up off of Larpenter, East St. Paul, Panphalin neighborhood, which is great. I think Adam does a lot of that type of business with people maybe in that situation at the start of their career for whatever goals they have. But that taught me how to be a landlord. That taught me how to own a house. That taught me how the financing end of it works. I learned a lot there. But then there was kind of a drop off point, right? That was when rates started going through the ceiling. Title business really slowed down because the title company I was at, it was refi heavy. So when refis dropped off, title business dropped off. Got laid off out of that company, and I lost my W-2 income. So I became 1099, and I was doing hardly any real estate transactions, so I didn't have any income.
So you managed to get your real estate license at some point.
Yeah.
Okay.
So I'm kind of scrambling here, but I did have my real estate license, and I was doing a little bit of retail stuff, traditional, but that just really wasn't my cup of tea. When I went in solo. I didn't get on a team. I thought I could figure all this out by myself, right?
And it's hard in your early 20s as well.
I mean, you got your sphere. What does Keller Williams tell you? Sphere. Well, all my friends are in school, dude. No one's buying a house at 21.
Yeah.
Right. And if you're 32, do you want your agent to be 21?
Right.
Some people could pull it off. Yeah. I'm sure you pulled it off a few times, but it's not easy.
No. And so, at the end of the day, I just didn't enjoy it. It's some people love that part of the business, and I give them a lot of props for everything they do in that part of the business, but that just wasn't my cup of tea. So, and sometime within that, there were some other guys in town that were doing a lot of land development. They had reached out to me.
Oh, you and I talked about that. I remember going to dinner or like a lunch somewhere and talk about this.
That was,
you were doing the infill stuff, right?
Yep, we were trying to do some infill development.
What year was that? Do you remember a time frame?
20. That was right around towards the backside of COVID too. So I was at Keller for probably a little under a year. I made a hop pretty quick to another brokerage in town that was doing a lot of the infill development stuff. But that was probably 21.
Okay.
COVID 2020. Yeah, late 21.
Can we get a definition on infill development, please?
Yes. At the
Somebody might not know what that is. One of the
No, I know
listeners.
that was actually. I just loved how you did it. I don't know. There's something it's like something very moderator about that.
It was like you had the button that just had the auto question.
Some of the younger kids might not understand what that means.
So infill development, can be a wide definition, but ultimately what our buy box was, we were looking for the oversized, our target area was kind of that first, second ring suburbs, and we didn't want to do anything super in city because that's a whole different play with tax credits and all that. But we were looking for oversized lots. Can you buy an oversized lot, split it up? Maybe it's just chopping it in half, and then you get a vacant lot. You hawk the lot to a builder, flip or sell the house, right? And then you make the spread. All the way up to, this is the one I'm thinking in my head. We bought in Mounds View. It was a corner lot, little over an acre. And I think we ended up splitting that up into 4 pieces and then sell each lot to a builder, sell the house off to the market.
But infill in general, correct me if I'm wrong, what I consider infill is developing in established neighborhoods where there is an opportunity either by tearing a house down and or buying a lot or subdividing a lot, stuff like that, right?
I think that was the perfect definition.
Yeah, that's what I would call infill anyway. I don't know if that's precise to the, but that's,
Yeah, I didn't know what it meant. That's why I'm asking. Yeah. So, cool.
So not new development, development in established neighborhoods.
Yeah,
we were
like
1 or 2 or 3 lots at a time.
We weren't for say going into up and coming suburbs and buying out cornfields. We were going into, 50, 60, 70s neighborhoods, finding that, hidden gem and chopping that up. And ultimately, we weren't the vertical developer. We weren't the builder. We were just doing all the front end work, the entitlements, the subdivisions, whatever it might be, and then selling those off to an end user, being, not the end user, but the builder.
Cool.
So that was a weird, no, I shouldn't say weird. That was a business partnership where I learned a lot. I'm not going to say we accomplished a lot, but I learned a lot. And that's...
Can you just share with us, like, what are some of the things you learned with through that process? I bet it'd be interesting.
Well, I think to the maybe unsuspecting person, you look at, no matter where you live, I think you've seen Lennar come into your town potentially and put up 300 homes, right? Yeah. Which is a crazy feat. But before you ever even see a bulldozer hit that grass, that there's already been stuff in works for years before that.
Yeah,
right?
Probably 2 years, right?
Yeah,
typically
2 or 3. I'm doing one right now, and this guy sat on the dirt for 3 years, and we can get into this later, but he bought the dirt 3 years ago, and we're just going to go build the homes this spring, right? So there's a long process to get up to the point of actually building, and I think, and why would a person even care to know? But there's a lot of work with city engineering, surveyors, whatever it might be, to get it all the way to that point of, hey, we can go build a house. When you're talking about something of that scale. So for me, that was really the biggest eye opener, was all the time and effort, energy, and certainly capital that goes into the front side of these neighborhoods and developments before anything actually happens.
That was going to be my next cost, like not including the dirt itself or even just the acquisition of the dirt. So all those closing costs aside, just from like the point of closing to the point of building, what would you estimate, like real roughly, what's the range of costs to get an entitlement done?
Yeah, there's so many variables that go into it all the way. I mean, are you splitting?
What municipality, right?
Yeah, municipality, which that's a whole nother, And so aside from your question, dealing with cities, I mean, that's another big thing too. I mean, when we were doing the one in Mounds View, you're in that city, you ultimately become friends with the city planner. And it's like, and you both have two different hats on, right? He's looking out for the city. We're quote unquote looking out for ourselves. But in our eyes, we're doing something for the benefit of the city. Well, sometimes they don't see it like that, right? And it's like we're bringing, new construction, we're raising home values, we're bringing a tax basis into this vacant land.
Yeah.
Why can't you just give us what we want, right? Yeah. Or what we're asking for? And we're not asking for the moon, but how to work with cities, that was another big learning experience too. But to answer your question, I guess maybe the best number I can put on it is one that we're actually in the middle of up in Stacy, Minnesota.
Which I would consider a lower cost area, right?
Yeah.
Because they're not going to have as much red tape and
100%,
right? Yeah.
100%. And, red tape's a perfect word that you deal with the closer you get to the inner city. But Stacy, that was I think a 7-acre parcel we purchased last fall, and the house was centered right dead center of it. It was kind of a rectangle development or lot, and we just chopped off each end of it. We're in the middle of that now. And the total cost just on the subdivision portion was somewhere in the ballpark of 15 to 20,000
per lot.
Total.
Okay.
So if you want to go per lot, 7,500 to 10 grand.
Okay.
But that also doesn't include our holding cost and that I have to go back to the spreadsheet.
Yeah, it doesn't include holding costs, and probably doesn't include bringing utilities and stuff, or are they already there?
That's for raw dirt.
Yeah.
And then they'll have to pull utilities in. They'll have to cut the curbs. The whole
Is that like a Met Council area?
No. So this one, and it's weird. The stuff I've done previously, we were much more hands-on. With everything I have going on, we basically went to our surveyor and said, hey, just give me the pro bono, you take care of everything package. I'll see you when you hand me the Mylars. So I don't have the intimate details on it. I know we cut a check and said, you please take care of everything. You run this through the city. You have all the conversations. Okay. So that price is probably a little high just because we weren't involved in really any of this, of the day-to-day of it. But I don't think the Met Council is involved up there. Okay.
The reason why I ask, if you guys don't know, is if you buy a lot and you want to connect up to a city sewer in the Twin City, anywhere that's controlled by the Metro Council, you have to pay the Met Council a fee. How much that is, I'm not 100% clear on, but I believe it's 10 grand.
Your whack sack. What you're referring to?
Yeah.
They call it whack sack.
Yeah.
We had to deal with in Mounds View for sure. And then your park dedication fees, and then the green grass fee and the blue sky fee. I mean, they start making stuff up at the end of the day. You're looking at the list. You're like, huh, everyone's getting paid but me today. I don't know. Yeah. So
can we go back to the story? Okay, so where we were in your trajectory, you start with the new brokerage. They're doing more of the infill lots. There's still a disconnect for me between where you are in the story and then doing 35 a year.
Yeah, you know what I mean? So it's a long roadmap, but we'll try and speed it up here, right? So we're doing the development stuff.
Yeah.
And ultimately what I learned is we were trying to do structured deals in a needle in a haystack way. Land development, we didn't get into it, but it's a very capital intensive game, right? And high risk, because you could shell out all this money up front and you get 2 years down the road and the city gives you the finger, says, no, we're not approving it. Well, you're out all that money, right?
Yeah.
And now you own the land that you can't do anything with.
Yeah, you can't even sell it really, right? No one wants it, except the next door neighbor for $6 grand.
Exactly, right?
How often would you say that happens?
Does it happen where it completely gets shut down? I'd say it's probably pretty rare. I mean, you just start pivoting. Like that was our problem in Mounds View, right? We were trying to go for a higher density. We were trying to pack that acre full of townhomes, right? Now, without getting too far into it, you got a county road on one side, so we're dealing with the county too. So they're shutting us down, the city's shutting us down, the neighbors shutting us down. So at the end of it, you just go back to what does zoning actually allow for here? So what do we actually have the right to do? And without getting too crazy, changing zoning, changing the comp plan, changing all this stuff. And if we can get back to the brass tacks of, well, what are we actually allowed to do here at the end of the day? We can make something happen. And that's what we ended up having to do. So you just start pivoting down on your, I guess, wish list of what do you want to see here.
Sure.
So
you're able to build a single family with gray siding, is what you're saying?
Yeah, we got down to the, yep. And yes. So to move forward from that, we locked a bunch of stuff up. None of it really penciled out at the end of the day. We didn't perform on, half of the stuff we ended up locking up. Like I said, I learned everything ultimately not to do in that part of the business, which was valuable at the end of the day. But
so what are a couple, let's, I mean, I think it's always important to say that. So like, what's one thing you would no longer do when it comes out? Just, it's not worth the time or whatever.
What not to do? Well, I think you look at the natural progression of somebody that's a real estate investor. Maybe you're an agent, or you have a good earning job, or you're just looking to get involved somehow. You go wholesale houses, you start making money, and then you start flipping houses, and then you start, keeping more residential properties, and then you maybe graduate to the commercial side of things or new construction. And then at that point, towards the backside of your career, you get into the development world, right? Development's high risk, high capital. My story was kind of flipped, right? I went into development, right? Not right away, but very early in my career. And I guess if there's a good takeaway learning lesson of the development stint I had at that point was be very well capitalized for what you're walking into. And if you're not well capitalized, ready to take on that risk and the money it takes to go play in that arena.
There's plenty of other ways to do it.
There's other ways to go to go learn.
Good to know, man. Yeah. Thank you. And it's not in every deal that looks like a deal isn't a deal, right? That's another thing I'm kind of gauging from what you said, right? Because you guys didn't execute on a lot of them, and you were looking and you had a plan. So it sounds like, like just because there's a double lot there or a lot and a half or whatever, that doesn't mean that you're going to like buy it, build on it, and make a ton of money, right?
No, and it's just like any other facet of the business, in the investment business at the end of the day, right? You got to take your emotion out of it. And even when we're out flipping houses, walking properties, it's more than just what would the numbers make. At the end of the day, yeah, the numbers have to make sense, but you have to know more than just your rehab costs to fix up the house. It's what street are you on? Are you backing up to a freeway? What city are you working? Does the city want this? When you're in the development world, a lot of it's, but what does the city want? Because they'll shut you down faster than anybody. What do the neighbors want? What's around this property, right? If we're trying to build townhomes, but we're in the middle of North Oaks around a golf course, you're not building townhomes there. And if that's the only thing it pencils out to do, well, then you're walking into a failed start.
I have a question. It seems like I owe a lot of my success, especially early on, to people like Tim, people like Jordan, people who like gave me a chance to teach me. Like I was put in a position that I think not a lot of people would be put in. And people are going to be listening to this. They want to learn how to develop, but somebody gave you the shot. Somebody threw forward in the middle of this, right? Mm-hmm. And how did that happen? Or what would you say to somebody who wants to get into this thing, but how many opportunities are there in the Twin Cities right now to be thrown into this little ecosystem of people developing? Like how were you given the opportunity, and what advice would you give to somebody who wants an opportunity like that?
I'll answer that question in a couple ways. On the development space, I'll go back to my answer from a couple minutes ago. Probably don't start there. Because that's just not, if you want to, great. Maybe go to a bigger operator in town. Some of the bigger guys in town, Roars being one of them, they're doing a lot of stuff right now. There's a couple local guys that are doing a lot of business. And if you can get your foot in the door with them, that would maybe be a good start. But as far as like myself, and I don't want to say I self-taught everything I know, but that was a lot of it. And then because I didn't really have a true mentor in anything I really do, a lot of it was just, hitting the pavement and going out and learning hard lessons. And then alongside of that, when I really got started in this, the investment real estate world's kind of an underground industry partially, I think is a good way to put it. And you kind of got to figure out who's controlling the deals, who's controlling the market, and who the players are. And so I kind of made it my mission at that point to just go figure out who those people are and shake as many hands as I could for a couple of years, right? Mm-hmm. Let's go out to coffee. Let's go get lunch. How can I bring value to what you're doing, right? And you're going to strike out, 9 times out of 10. You'll go get lunch and it sizzles out. You never really talk again. But just keeping those relationships open, those doors open, having an open mind to everything, right? I mean, there's a lot of different personalities in this business. So just being accepting and open and always looking for a way to add value into, I'll call them a player's life, right? Or their business, is it bringing them a deal? And you might make nothing off it, but they made money and they're not going to forget you brought them a deal that made them money when you need help from them a couple years down, or they might throw you a pointer here and there. And then just naturally you start to meet people. And I think for me, the snowball just slowly started rolling, and relationships align. And once you start picking up momentum, magically those phone calls start coming back to you, right? I don't know if that answers your question.
That's a great answer.
Well, but
Yeah. I knew I wanted to work with Jordan, so I just joined his brokerage, and then I would just go to the office every day and just kind of, we were already a little bit friendly, You switched from Keller Williams, right, to this brokerage that was doing something you were interested in. Mm-hmm. So you got to kind of put yourself in that space, so to speak.
Yeah, just throw yourself in the deep end. Like if you even have a speck of a vision of what you want to do, in your case, right? And I don't know what your whole mission statement was when you got into this business, but Jordan, I don't know him personally, but I know he was a player. He was doing a lot of business back when I was even getting started, and you threw yourself into the deep end. Let's go hang out around Jordan. Jordan's doing deals, right?
Totally, yeah.
Jordan's a guy I want to know, right? Mm-hmm. And Jordan knows people that I want to know. I would assume maybe that's how you guys met.
Exactly,
and,
yeah.
So things evolve, and you just get around those circles, and crazy things happen.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Cool.
Okay, so let's get into when did you start flipping? Because I think,
Yeah, so to where we are today, we were doing the development stuff. I had that development partnership really with two other guys. That was on the backside of COVID. Rates start going up. And like I had mentioned, the development game, especially when we're doing the entitlement stuff, the land development, you're banking 3 years in the future the market's looking good because we got to sell these lots to somebody. And when we were on the backside of COVID, rates are going through the roof like we've never seen before. Banks are clamping down on their lending restrictions. Nobody's lending out money to these builders. Building permits are dropping. Builders aren't buying lots. Our whole sector of the market got really spooked, right? And we said we got to go figure out a way to make faster cash. So I think we watched an episode of HGTV and decided, let's go flip a house. Right? That's about what it was,
awesome,
right?
Man. And this is you and your other partners at this point, or when you say we, or is this really just Ford talking to himself? Going,
no, I talk to myself a lot, but
Hey,
that's not what happened here. It was the same. It was the group of three of us.
Okay.
And in that point in time, the older gentleman, he was kind of our money guy. Mm-hmm. The second guy in the Three Musketeers, he had his general contractor's license. And then myself, I was the quote-unquote real estate expert who could go find a deal, right? So, and we knew nothing really about the off-market stuff, wholesalers, what does a deal even look like, right? We just walk in and we found a property on Agate Street. I forget the house number at this point. Yep.
Yeah.
Spotty part of town,
Right by 35E.
Yep, right behind Tilsner Carton, kind of tucked back behind Regions there, sort of.
Okay.
But right off 35, just west.
Yeah.
But we walked in today, never would have bought that deal. But back then we didn't know any better, right? It was a 2-bed, 1-bath with an unfinished basement on a little shoebox lot with a telephone pole right in the middle of the backyard, and I think every neighbor had their wires coming to it, and no garage, right? So in the middle of the hood. So we went there and we're like, hey, we can go down to this basement, get a second bathroom, get a third bedroom, have a little living room. I forget how many square feet it was. It was not a big house. But we knew none of us had ever flipped a house. We knew nothing about flipping or really construction in general. I mean, I'm a handy guy, but not to that level. I just had no experience in it. So whatever, we went full speed ahead. And on that one, I ended up doing about, I don't know, maybe 30% of the work between me and the general contractor partner I had. And he had some in-house guys at that point that were doing some of the work as well. But really the learning lesson there was we had no idea what we were doing. There's a process to construction, right? Who comes first? The demo guys or the plumber? The framers or the electrician?
Yeah.
The draftsman or the HVAC guy? We had no idea. So we're just slinging contractors in there every which way. And nobody's really bringing up to us like,
this is the wrong way to do it.
Right. Yeah. Until the inspector comes or whoever came at whatever point, and they're like, yeah, this isn't going to work, guys. So whatever, we had framed out the whole basement. That all came down because we didn't put up a vapor barrier. Framed out the bathroom. That had to we left that, and then we had to re-rough in the toilet because the rough in was too close to the frame. Just stuff like that. Everything was done in reverse order.
Yeah.
So what we thought going in was going to be a 4-week deal ended up being, I don't know, a 3 or 4 month deal. And
do you have to? And the reality is, you probably don't have that many deals that are under 3 or 4 weeks now, or three or 4 months right now, anyway, right?
that are under that.
Yeah.
We got to a point where we really got our systems down, and we were moving and grooving on stuff pretty hard, and we can kind of.
I suppose you can't do 35 without doing some.
Yeah, unless they're, like the Cat 2 I just finished triplex. That was a 4-month deal. They have to be pretty bad to take that amount of time.
Okay.
Or we just have a lot going at one time.
But how many times has someone sat in that chair and they talk about their first renovation project? And that's the exact same story. It happens to everybody. Happened to me 9 months probably for my first one.
And you just got to consider, look, people spend 6 figures on a university education nowadays.
Yeah.
So if you, let's say, profit anything, let's say $1, and get through a project and learn some things, that's an education that you just got paid for, right? Well,
and that was my next statement exactly, right? By the time this all, I don't even want to say it was a horror story or nightmare, but by the time this whole play came to an end and you did the math on what we earned per hour, we should have gotten a job at McDonald's. But to your point, we got paid for an education. And that was the greatest thing that could have ever happened at that point in time, right? Mm-hmm. My friends are paying $50,000 a year to go to college. I just got paid $700 or whatever it was to go flip a house, right? It could have been worse, right? Or we could have cut a check at closing. But from there, that was the end of that partnership. We were completely done. Everybody went their separate ways. We did have a development deal that we were still trying to sell out of, but for all intents and purposes, that movie was over.
Yeah.
And at that point, like I said, I had lost my job. I was 1099, not making a ton of dough, so I couldn't get lending. I didn't know hard money. I didn't, Tim didn't want to talk to me. He would never answer my call.
Tim was really mean to you, wasn't he?
He's like, don't call me anymore. So I was just trying to figure it out. I know I wanted to go do another one. My girlfriend, she's in real estate. She wanted to flip a house. So it's like, okay, cool, but I don't know where the money's going to come from, right? The money tree didn't sprout this year. So, but ultimately, I had borrowed money from my father to go do my second, I think that was my second deal, right? So we tapped on his line of credit, and, he gives a private money loan to go acquire the second property in White Bear Lake. That one I did 99% by myself, or between my girlfriend and I doing all the work. Which, once again, great. I learned the process of everything. We had a rough learning experience the one prior, got into the second one. Now we're literally going to go do everything besides the licensed trades.
And real quick, did you grow up, was your dad handy? Did you grow up with some skills, or was it just the house hack and YouTube?
Yeah. Yes, my father's a handy guy, but not in the home building sense. I mean, he knows how to do just about everything. He's an amazing guy, but he's more of a motorhead. My name's Ford, so I grew up with my dad working around cars, not building houses.
Yeah,
if that makes sense. And
still important for that part of your brain, though. I think
the mechanical.
Yeah, I think so.
So there's something there, but I think a lot of what my father taught me was more of a business and entrepreneurial mindset, and I just kind of took that and blossomed off it. But we went and did that second one, and kind of how we structured that, not to get into the hardcore structure of it, but, we borrowed the acquisition money. I had a little bit of capital saved up. We brought the rehab money. Bing, bang, boom. We went all in and flipped that one. And then by that time, it was time to go do a third one. Same situation. My dad didn't really want to lend money again. We had maybe 30 or 40, 50 grand saved up, which is it's enough money, but it's not enough money to really go flip a house if you don't have your financing dialed in and all that jazz, right? So there was another gentleman that I had brought some value to. I met him right away when I got my license, and he was just kind of a bottom feeder around the St. Paul market, picking up distressed stuff, and I'll call him a kind of a wholesaler, kind of not, just always looking for a deal and flip it to the next guy type guy. He brought me this deal over in Frogtown off La Fonde by St. Agnes. church school. And he said, Ford, do you want to buy this? I said, yeah, I'd love to. I just don't have the money to. I think he wanted 170 or something. Right. I said, but if you'd be willing just to carry the note for 6 months, because he had bought it at this point, if you'll carry the note for 6 months, I'll even pay you, 10 grand or whatever to carry the note. So same situation. He said, yeah, let's do it. I think, so he wanted 170. I said, I'll pay you 180 if I can just pay you in 6 months. So we did a short-term contract for deed. Same situation where I brought all the rehab money and flipped that. So those first couple deals after that initial one, it was just kind of a case of scrambling at any way we could to structure a deal, right? Very unconventional, creative financing type situation. And whatever my money I had in my bank account, that was up for grabs. We're going to go all in and see what we get out. We're going to go all in, see what we get out. And that even holds true till today. Kind of getting to where I am now, it's just been whatever I have, we're going all in. And if we fail, we go back to right where we started it. If we win, we win. And, after enough educated investments or educated guesses, we have a pretty good idea of where we're going to end up. But so we did that third deal, and it was a few more just of those, stringing however we could, different partnerships. People maybe bring me a deal.
I apologize if I missed it, but how are we making money at this point?
Yeah, we're not getting rich off it, but we're, those first couple ones, they were probably $30,000 to $50,000 profits. So decent.
Yeah. Those are actually pretty damn good for flips, right?
And looking at to what I did the last year, probably our average, what we're doing on deals, I should have been pretty happy with that back then. Not to say we're losing money this year by any means, but, when you get into this volume part and we're just trying to crank out deals, your margins start to thin, and we're bringing on a lot more overhead, right? So
yeah, that's part of the big thing, right? More overhead, and you can't stop either because you've got all these people on payroll. If you don't, or they're either on payroll or they're basically your subs that are almost exclusive to you, and if you don't keep them busy, they go find someone else, right? So you're kind of trying to keep them all busy.
Well, you can build the beast, but then you got to feed it.
Yeah.
And if you stop feeding it, the whole movie ends, right? Yeah. So there's a pro and a con. Everybody wants to go do, and I shouldn't say everybody, a lot of people, they want to go flip 100 houses. They want to own 10,000 doors. They want to own every commercial building in town, right? That's kind of where my brain just naturally goes. I always think big. And there's a pro and a con to all that, right? You can go build that monster, but then at a certain point, you got to feed the thing. And there's a lot more that comes with that. And that's kind of where I'm at in today's times, not to fast forward, but it's like we've built the machine, and now we're feeding the machine. And it's like now you start looking at is this really things were a lot simpler back then, right? We could just go flip 4 houses a year and make good money and not have all the overhead and problems and employee issues and material issues and floating costs, right? There's a lot that comes with building out a machine like that. So
and now the cool thing is you've learned all those lessons, so you would make more on the 4 that you do, or 8 you do, or whatever the number is, right?
I would what? I'm sorry?
You would make more. You would look for better deals.
Yeah.
You would be more efficient. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean, right? Mm-hmm. You would lose some efficiencies because not having people on staff would change a little bit when you can start a project, right? You got to wait 3 weeks for the person to be ready or whatever. But in the end, you'd be able to dial it in pretty good.
100%. Yeah. And that's with anything. That's any business owner. That's even somebody in their own career, right? It just takes time to learn, right? And figuring out what works and what doesn't. But
well, life doesn't necessarily get better when you make more money. Something to be said for having a small and mighty business. Take on more risk, more overhead. I think I've certainly kept my business pretty small and lean. I could be doing, more. I could have more people that I'm responsible for.
Well, and it just kind of on that, right? It's like I'm kind of almost at that part of the movie now where I'm really realizing that. But I always used to ask my dad. I mentioned my dad's in the title industry. I'm like, I just harp on him. Why wouldn't you want to bring this nationwide? Why don't you blow this up and make it the biggest title company in the country? And we're going to be in all 50 states. We're going to have 10,000 employees. We're going to have offices everywhere. He said, Ford, I don't want that. I don't want the headache that comes with that. I don't want the travel that comes with that. I don't want the attorneys that come with that. But it never clicked. I'm like, why wouldn't you want that? well, now I know why you don't want that, right?
Yeah. Well, just as the founder of Caribou, right? I mean, like he made out okay, but he hated his life. Or if you listen to his podcast that he's on, you know, that's why he owns Punch Pizza now, because they like, it's small, right? It's like what they want it to be. And they're not growing really bigger, right? Like they might grow a little bigger, but it's not like this, it blow up. They're not going to do Caribou again.
Right.
Yeah.
It's a double-edged sword for sure, and I'm not trying to downplay on anything, you know, we're still going 110 miles an hour, and I enjoy stress. I thrive off of stress. I thrive off anxiety. Like I have to be under the gun and then I'm operating at full speed type guy, right? So we're still going full speed ahead and shooting for the stars, but it's a different game now than it was 3 years ago for sure. But back to the storyline, it was just maybe a year and a half of just putting together a deal however we could, and we're maybe doing, you know, 7 to 8 flips maybe for a year or two. You know, like the biggest project we did before I got into this year's madness was there was a category 2 vacant home. For
those are St. Paul, by the way, right?
Yes, sir.
Minneapolis doesn't have that categorization, right?
Yeah, they have
they call it different.
The condemned. Yeah. It's a different process, but
if someone says cat 2, they're talking about St. Paul.
Yeah, not 2 cats in the house, which you'll find in this business. You'll find any type of animal. You'll find cats, pigs, chickens. I got squirrels in the house right now. So we did this cat 2, but I found it off market. I was just ripping that vacant housing list, right? I'm still cold calling at this point, trying to strum up deals, right? We're young, we're hungry. Let's make something happen. Let's get it to a table however we can. And I brought it to another gentleman in town. If I said his name, you guys would for sure know him. Who was just doing a ton of, that was his whole business model, was banging out condemned homes, and he had it dialed in. You should get him on the show.
I think I know. Can I just say who I think it is? Rashad?
Yeah, Rashad Kennedy.
He's definitely going to be on the show. We've actually talked to, he'll be on the show for sure.
So that guy, nothing but good words for him. He is a killer whale at what he does, and I don't know how. I think I have a lot going on. That guy brings it to another level, just on the projects he does at one time, and then just the scale of the projects. I mean, I don't even think he knows what a cosmetic flip is. If we're not ripping out every wall and every bathroom and starting at the studs, he doesn't want the project, which awesome. So
he's done some new construction too.
But and now he's getting into new construction world. I know he's got a development over in Maplewood he's doing, and he's doing some stuff down in Dinkytown. But I brought the deal to him. I said, hey, Rashad, I don't have the knowledge to go do this, you know, crack house, condemned, whatever it was, sat vacant for 3, 4, 5 years, whatever it was. But I brought him that. We went and walked it. He said, yeah, lights out, let's do it. And I brought in a third partner in that to bring all the capital, right? So we did get we leaned on Rashad's hard money connection to actually fund the core of the project. But as far as the down payment and the floating cost or the carry, I had a third partner I brought in that I gave equity to bring all that expense. So that was a deal where I brought nothing to it other than the deal. Rashad did all the work, and we rolled that wave to the end and sold that. So that was my biggest deal to date back then. But just another example of how we were just structuring stuff in fairly unconventional ways, just to make a deal happen.
Do you get your contractor license somewhere in this?
Yeah. This year I actually got that, and so I'll get to there.
Cool.
So from after there, I've said it multiple times already, but we just kept putting together deals like that however we could, JVing other agents, contractors, JV agreements, whatever it was. Until I met a gentleman in a house probably beginning, like spring of last year.
Okay.
And he was a pretty big wholesaler, probably doing 50 to 60 transactions a year. But everything was going to 3 or 4 people, right? And which that's another lesson I've learned in the last couple of weeks. So why would you only sell your stuff to 3 or 4 people that you know can perform? Well, there's a lot of value in that, even though you're going to make less money. Moral of the story, this was one that those 3 or 4 people didn't want, so it went out to the Facebook page. I don't know if it was Brad's page or something, and I show up and there's 50 people in the house, and I'm like, hey, I love it, but I'm not going to compete with all these people. I know where my price has to be, and it's at what you're asking or under. This thing's going to get bid up through the roof. I have no interest. But if all else fails, here's my price. He says, yeah, you already got bid out. So whatever, I leave a week or so later, I get a call from that gentleman trying to wholesale the house. And he said, hey, that buyer didn't perform. I'm stuck with the contract now. I got to go close on it. Do you just want to come do the work and I'll bring all the capital and we'll split the money, which is already what I've been doing for 3 years. So it was kind of like it was meant to be, right? Well, one deal turned into 5, turned into 12, turned into 35. And because I approached him, I said, you know, you're doing a lot of business, right? And you're making a very generous fee on every deal you're doing, but we can double that or triple that if we just go put a little makeup on these houses and I'll do all the work. Because at that point, I, was starting to get my capital figured out. We were starting to gain traction in that arena. I was starting to get my crews really dialed in. But my biggest problem was just deal flow. We couldn't find opportunity. So, and my partner now, he had the opposite problem. He had an abundance of deals. He also had capital dialed in, but he didn't have anybody to actually go cruise. He didn't have people to go perform the labor and maximize the value and profit out of every deal he was locking up. So it was kind of a perfect natural fit at that point, right? So we hit it off and started doing a lot of deals. I think last year we did, I don't know what we ended up at, 12 or 15, and then grew into what we ended up doing this year. And within
what was the differences between 12 and 35? Like, was it,
relationship building? It was kind of, if I have to put an analogy on it, was date before you get married. We're not going to go do everything he's locking up together. Let's make sure Ford can actually walk the walk and talk the talk and do what he says he can do.
I think what Tim is asking, though, is like, how much harder is it to do 35 in a
kind
year
of,
for
yeah.
you
kind
or
of,
for
yeah.
the team?
I mean, is it?
Yeah, so I have and how much harder? It's a whole different beast, honestly.
Yeah, it's not the same. It's not the same deal. Like, you're still constructing houses, but it's completely different.
Yeah, and at this point in the movie, I'm not touching a hammer at all. I'm completely hands off of the actual day to day. I'm basically walking houses, putting together scopes, ordering material, and scheduling subs, and showing up, making sure people are actually at work, right?
Right.
So that was a big difference too. I'm not in the house all day, every day, monitoring or actually doing the work, right? So you step out of a hands-on operator to a oversight role, maybe, I guess it would be a good word.
Yeah.
And learning how to manage people, right? And any business owner can relate to this. That's a whole learning curve in itself of just dealing with personalities and what people need and their expectations.
In their lives, right? Stuff comes up for them.
In their lives too, right?
Yeah.
And I think that's a tricky one. That's one I think, as much as I'm getting a better grasp on it, any business owner will battle until they retire, right? Just dealing with people. And you get better at it.
And the smaller you are, the more you rely on those people. And then if they have something come up, like I'll tell you, like in my mortgage business, I had a coworker who was like my right-hand woman. She had a traumatic event in her life, and it changed her life for the rest of her life, but it changed her life dramatically for like 9 months. She could, barely do her job, and I had to do my job and her job, and I didn't want to fire her, and that kind of stuff comes up, right? And in smaller scales, even just like a kid gets sick and all of a sudden your electrician isn't there that day. And
and it's hard, right? I mean, we're human. I care about your situation. I feel bad. I want to help you any way I can. And not to sound like a greedy pig, but it's also costing me a lot of money to do this. I mean, the carrying costs. So if and
it's not greedy because, like you said, you can make a lot, but you can lose a lot. These are
very quickly.
They turn on a dime, don't they?
Exactly. Yeah. And then just dealing with contractors in general. It's like a lot of them, they're just so in there. The electrician is on there. They care about the outlet. They don't care what comes after the outlet. And that's a weird example, but like the sheetrock guy, nobody thinks about the next trade, right? So my example in that, right? If my framers have a life event, mom dies, wife gets sick, whatever, they get delayed 2 weeks, you just messed up the whole schedule, right? Because now I got to reschedule my sheetrock guys. Now I got to reschedule my tapers. Now I got to reschedule my painters. Now I got to you do that 3-4 times in a project, you're 3 months overdue, right? Yeah. Because it messes up the system so hard. So it's just a constant battle with that, right? And you can have that battle flip in one house a year and then times it by 35 or 100 when you're doing that much. And it's just, I mean, it's controlled chaos at the end of the day. And I guess the other problem too is you start scaling, and I think a lot of small business owners deal with this, right? You need help, you need project managers, but you're not necessarily capitalized well enough to go make that jump. I have a hard time making that leap. Like, I like having my hands on things, and I have a hard time letting go of the control. By hiring in a project manager, by hiring an admin or a bookkeeper, whatever it might be for my side of the business. And then you combine that with the ultra market specific nature of Minnesota real estate. When we go balls to the walls all summer, and in the winter we could drop off for 2 months and not do anything. Well, if I have 4 people sitting on salary, we're shelling out a lot of money over Christmas when there's nothing coming in the door, right? So that's kind of been my this year's battle of like figuring out the best way to, I guess, remediate that, and kind of start bringing in more project manager roles, or bookkeeper roles.
I think one thing I struggle with right now is like, how picky should I be with the contractors? Because I've done it before where I'm too high maintenance for them and they don't want to work with you again. And there's something to be said for keeping a really good, friendly relationship with some of these guys. Now, I'm doing this at such a smaller scale than you, you know, one project at a time. I don't know. Do you have anything to say for that?
Well, I think what I've learned in it is, and I can get into for the longest time, like what was our go-to model? Like what was the house that we just knew like the back of our hand, right? And that plays into what your question is. But there's different levels of contractors, right? And it's, you have your guys that are made for that $200,000 rental grade flip, right? And then you have your middle of the road guys, and then you have your luxury contractors, right? And they all have different price points, they all have different expectations, they all have different pay schedules, etc. So it's kind of knowing, and it's hard flipping houses, right? Because I mean, you're trying to make your margin, your numbers work, you're trying to get stuff done for as cheap as possible at a reasonable rate, but you're expecting excellence, right? So it's kind of leveling down to them. Is this are you hiring them at the price point that should give you the value you're looking for? Because if you're going out and hiring the cheapest sheetrocker you can find, you might get away with that in Dayton's Bluff, but you're not getting away with that where you live. He lives in a nice part of town. I don't come down here that much. Yeah. But you know what I'm saying, right?
Completely, yeah.
It's that too.
But you can still have standards. Okay, so I'm working with the cheapest possible people for the most part because I'm going to hold it as a rental. And I'm also not doing like major kind of structural stuff. But you can still have standards.
Yeah. Standards. And
I might be asking too vague of a question, I think, right now.
Well, the other thing I know about, because you use the same people I do, and so I know enough about what you deal with is like with any contractor. Ford's talking about using like different people for taping, drywall. You know, he didn't say paint, but I'm sure there's different painters, you know, framers, all this stuff, right? They all are really good at what they do. We're using a jack of all trades to do the whole project. And I can tell you the jack of all trades that I know are really awful painters.
They're the worst.
and they're suspect on electrical. They can do minor electrical, but not anything major. And even the minor, I've noticed some problems here and there, right? So, but I know that, and really what I need to do is not hire them for those two things or deal with the consequences, right? Or try to coach them up a little bit on the painting. Because I think the painting is really about drop costs more than anything else.
The floor's a little messy.
The floors
it can get messy, yeah.
Yeah, it looks like a snow globe on the floor sometimes.
Speckles everywhere. I think maybe and a lot of it's just learning and building that relationship. To like your point, I mean, I have like my core 5-6 guys, right? After doing, I don't know how many houses that these guys have been in with me now, I know what I can tell them to do and what I can't. I mean, they can do everything.
Sure.
But there's
if you
stuff
ask them to do something they're C work at or worse, you're getting C work or worse, and maybe D because they hate it too, right?
Yeah, and they won't say no to anything, but I know.
That's a problem too.
Right, and you got to be careful with that, right? Because there's a whole case study with Ford Wagner on they just want as much work as they can possibly get.
Oh, yeah,
that
no
can
problem.
go south very fast.
No problem.
Yeah, no problem.
But it's just, I mean, as much as I should say it's your responsibility, like that's I don't want to pin it back on you, but it's my responsibility because they're going to say yes to everything. But I've learned what my core guys are good at and what they're not. My guys will no longer hang any sheetrock in any house I own. I mean, that's just not a thing, right? Because not only does it take 5 times as long as it should, it looks like crap, right? And they can't tape to save their life.
And the looks like crap typically also means lots of seams and joints where all of a sudden you're doing these weird angle tape jobs and all this other stuff, right? I've ran into that before.
Yeah, I mean, it
And
looks
then
like
my painters are like, holy
Right.
hell, I have to redo all the mudding here because...
in the nail, you can see every screw hole and you have tape bubbling on the wall. It's, what are we doing here, guys?
Yeah.
Let's just keep you guys. But at the same time, if they want to go do my finished carpentry, knockout job. They'll bang out a whole house in, 2 days. It's crazy. Or if they want to go right now, they're painting a whole house for me and they'll bust down and paint that whole thing and they'll work around the clock to get it done. So it's me on my front to answer your question, understanding what my guys are good at, what they're not, A. And then if you're truly subbing it out to a trade specialist, holding them accountable, right? Always making sure you know where you're at with the money, right? As much as you don't want to hold stuff over people's head, that's a lot to do with when you're dealing with contractors.
You end up having to do that,
You have
even
to
if
do
you
that.
have a good relationship, right?
It's 100% because I've had great relationships with some of my subs, and it usually ends in one of 3 ways. They get a drinking problem, a drug problem, or a problem at home, and then you no longer hear from them, and they have $2,000 of your dollars that they were ahead of the money, and they had no problem running away and never answering a call again. And it's happened more times than I can count. So,
And for those who are listening, they will give you sometimes a heartbreaking story about why they need the money early,
Yeah.
and you're gonna feel like you are, taking food out of people's mouths to not pay them early.
Oh, yeah.
Sometimes, and you just gotta, before you even get into this business, just tell yourself you're not going to pay early.
Yeah,
I would say.
I had a guy, and I won't mention his name because he's still, I almost feel like I should because people shouldn't use him, but he's not the worst in the world, but he's really bad. But yeah, we had an agreement. Okay. We were talking about payment because he started asking me weird times. Like I came up to him one day and I said, well, let me know when you're going to need a payment. I need a little advance notice. I tell him that at like 3:00 the next morning. He's like, I need money today. And I'm like, do we just have this conversation?
Yeah.
Could you, right? So then I learned, and I was like, again, I learned, okay, this guy's bad about this, so I'm gonna set this up. And I said, the next time I'm gonna pay you is gonna be no earlier than X date, which I think was 1 week out or 2 weeks out. I think it was 2 weeks out, right? And you have to also have reached this milestone. I don't remember the milestone anymore, but it might have been like the house has to be painted, right, or something like that, right? And we hit the date, and he's like, "Where's my money?" And I said, "Dude, you haven't even started the milestone. Not only are you not done, I'm like, you have 2 things to do before you get to that milestone. You're not getting paid for a while, right? And that's it. And I just held out, and eventually he just never finished and moved on. And he was not managing his own money well, so he needed my money to live his life, even though he wasn't working. And he's like, well, I can't live off this. And I'm like, the only reason you can't live at this is you're working a third of the speed you could be working at. And that really is what it came down to. He was just not getting shit done, but wanting money,
And to your point, well, you had a lot of good points there, but
you've seen that before.
I hate to
too, right?
overgeneralize, but a lot of the problems certainly come in the unlicensed trades is where I see it the most, having these types of issues, and they're not good at managing their money at the end of the day. And then they try and make it your problem. And then, like you said, they make it a sob story of why their kids aren't eating dinner tonight. It's because of Ford. Well, that's not my problem at the end of the day, right? We had an agreement. And how we make sure this is very clear and concise. You have performance metrics. This is when you get paid. You're getting nothing up front because the way we run our business, I want labor-only bids, right? I'm supplying all the material. That's how we kind of hold control of our
some
flips.
of the money. Yeah.
We'll supply all the material. You're bringing in labor. If you're bringing in labor, there is zero reason you need money up front. You have no
you haven't worked yet.
You're not yet.
Yeah.
You're not paying for material, nothing. So there's no excuse of why you need a check to start. Okay, and then once you get to X, you'll get your first draw. Once you get to Y, you get your second. And everyone's a little different on how we structure it, but and then you get to Z, right? Is when everything's completely done. We're gonna go through to blue tape. And this is where I can see it becomes a conflict with you, is we're gonna go do a blue tape at the end. How far do you take blue tape, right? Do we take it till it looks like a parade model on Lake Minnetonka, or do we take it till it looks like a
East St. Paul
flipper, right? Yeah. And so you got to use your judgment, and it's all your relationship with the contractor. I mean, because you can have them keep coming back for a year, right? I mean, it's never going to be perfect, and I kind of know that. So, but it's just like those little things you learn over time, right? And you're not getting paid in full until this is done. So, I don't know if that answers.
That's a great answer.
Yeah,
from both of you guys. The other thing I think I need to work on is networking with more contractors. Having some more options, getting multiple labor-only bids for my projects. And obviously there's the old, you can always just poach the guy who's working for your guy, but I'm not going to do that. Any other tips? And I know there's a ton of people listening who, well, how do you even meet these people in the first place? Because if you don't get into this underground of the unlicensed labor, it's really hard to be in the real estate investing game at all.
Yeah. I think there's a couple things there. On the license side, let me back this up. To your point of, there's also a difference between the plumber your mother's going to call for her house and the plumber I need to be working on my stuff. And it really comes down to price point and volume you're giving these contractors. So any of my guys that come in, I mean, it's the first open conversation. I am absolutely not the highest paying guy in town. I need stuff done at X price point, which theoretically is probably half of what you could go make by working on the neighbor's house. But yes, I'm going to keep you busy 52 weeks out of the year, right? You're going to go...
And you're not going to have to go sell, which costs you money, right?
Exactly.
Because the time they're selling, they're not billing, right?
Some understand that, most don't. But the some that
sure,
do,
right.
Cool,
most
we're in business, right?
Yeah.
Like, let's go. And until you screw up or screw me or do something bad, we'll ride off into the sunset, right? So how do I find these people? My plumber, electrician, HVAC's always up in the air, but those guys have been with me pretty much since I started, and they were just referrals. They understand the mission I'm on. And part of that initial conversation is, I share my vision with them. I say, here's where we're at now. Here's the business I'm doing now. Here's what we're growing this into. And if you understand my vision now and you're along for the ride, we can, I'm not giving you equity in the company, but you're going to be my guy, right? And so if they can buy into that alongside you and know that they're going to go do 300 houses with you over the next 5 years, some guys they have the business mindset and they see the value in that. So those are the licensed trades. They're their own animal, and then there's and when I say licensed, your electricians, your plumbers, your HVAC, those types of trades. But unlicensed would be like your sheetrockers, your painters, your framers, siding guys, etc. Those are a lot of that stuff. For me now, those guys are just always DMing me on Facebook. I think they see my content. I wonder if they see any of this with what you do, and if you ever get DMs like that.
It's a good idea. No, never.
So a lot of them reach out to me.
Yeah, but you're doing a lot of project-related stuff, or you're doing more like purchase-related stuff, right?
Yeah,
or
I don't
remodel
come off
versus
like
purchase. Yeah, different.
So for somebody just getting started, there's a page.
There's like a subs page on Facebook, isn't there?
Yeah, Minnesota Contractors. Any trade you need under the sun, there's somebody in there trying to sell their business. But
do you guys know where I can find a vent cleaner?
I thought you were serious for a second. I'm like, well, I don't know about those guys. I'm still trying to figure out that scam they're trying to run. I don't really get that one.
Wait, are you joking? Because there's like a vent cleaner who's so thirsty online, who's always posting
who's in our group who keep posting.
He's
and then
posting about his
delete
family,
him, and then delete him, and then he comes back as someone else, or at least someone else does. And I feel
it's in our group.
I feel they're like cockroaches. You can't kill them.
And is that a scam?
I don't know that it's I have no idea.
But I don't get it, because it's the same story with multiple of these companies. They just pop up out of the blue, hammering for business.
Yeah.
And
my wife thinks it's a scam in that you don't need it. You just don't need vent cleaning, so.
Yeah, if you're keeping your filter clean, I guess things are getting through the filter. Who knows?
Yeah, I don't know.
I'm such an idiot. I'm like, God, it's so dry in my house.
Oh, that does bring up there is a good point to Minneapolis and vent cleaning. So this is something I found out on one of my projects. Minneapolis code if you put a new furnace in a property, it cannot be used until the remodel is complete. Try doing that in the middle of a winter and actually meeting Minneapolis code. So I'm not going to tell you exactly how it worked, but we explained to the city, I'm like, well, my guys aren't not going to work for the next 6 months then because we have a new furnace. And, well, you can do a separate heater. Like, no, that doesn't work either.
And how
right?
dangerous are the separate heaters, right?
And their whole reason is they don't want the new furnace to get dirty on the inside. That is their whole and the ductwork and all this stuff, right? This is their reasoning. Okay. But it's perfectly acceptable to have a dirty furnace if it's old. It just can't be dirty if it's new.
Because all the dust that's being kicked up during the construction, that's
but
the
the
point.
dust is kicked up whether it's a new furnace or an old furnace.
Right. On
one, you cannot use it. The other one, you can.
Right.
Right? There's no actual logic. There's no real safety being created. Not really. Because if it was, then no one should use our furnace while they're doing contracting work. If it's truly that bad. If it's not, there's a different solution. We came up with cleaning the vents. It doesn't meet Minneapolis code, but it's going to work.
Well, it's like any of these crazy laws that keep getting passed or new code. In theory, if you think about it with your head sideways, it kind of maybe might make sense, but the practicality behind any of it, it never checks out.
Well, right? and here's another thing that like my contractor would bring up, and I know too, but like you might not immediately think of it if you're a bureaucrat in the city office. But when you bring flooring into a house, you have to leave it at room temperature for what is it, 1 day or at least a few hours, like 6 hours. It has to be brought up to temperature before you install it. And the same would be true of like your sheetrock and all these other things. If you don't bring them up to temperature and you don't keep that at a consistent temperature, which a furnace will do and a space heater will not do, you don't have a project. Right. Like you just can't work on it. So it's just ridiculous. But anyway. On the flip side, I will say I had a really great experience with Minneapolis inspectors recently. They kind of railed us to do a bunch of things that they didn't rail us to do. He's like, we want good housing. We can tell you're doing a good job. Just do this, this, and this, and we'll be okay. And I was like, great. Super reasonable.
That's what we need more of.
Yeah,
right?
Super reasonable. Guy, again, I don't even know that I want to say his name because I don't want him to get singled out in his office being like, why aren't you being harder on him? But very reasonable inspector. So that's the first one I've run into in a while that was super reasonable. I've run into some that were not total, power trips, but a lot of power trips. And I'm just like, holy cow. Like,
they get a sniff of power and they just want to lay the law on.
Yeah. So going back to these contractors, I've noticed, I haven't brought this up before, but the other thing I notice is you can have a great contractor, really thinking unlicensed subs, but it's not all unlicensed. They can be really great for you for a while, right? And they're giving you good pricing, but over time they either realize they've got you, so their pricing creeps up, right? That can happen. Or the other thing that happens, I brought this up to Adam, that I see is they get so busy, they get other people that will take on jobs and then they disappear for a while, right? Like, especially in the real unlicensed people, like they might be coming in super cheap because they need money, but then all of a sudden someone ask them to remodel grandma's kitchen or, or bathroom, and you lose them for 3 weeks or 4 weeks because grandma's paying like below real contractor rates, but more than double what they're making from you or whatever.
Yeah. Well, now they're rich. Why would they ever work for Ford again? They just got to do grandma's kitchen, right?
Yeah. But then they end that project and they don't have the next one. And then they come crawling back to you like, you're no longer reliable, right? Like I've had that happen. Like
you get the text, it's just like, hi, how are you? You get those?
Yeah.
That's just a contractor, you know.
We just employed you for 8 months in a row, consistently paying you every, and now all of a sudden you leave me for grandma, which you could have did grandma at nights and weekends, at that price, she would have taken it, or whatever,
and
that
it's,
kind of.
I feel like at every stage you kind of hit a different battle. I'll call it, right. When you're starting, it's everything, right. You don't know where to start. And, certainly the capital is a hard piece for a lot of people. And then you kind of get that figured out, and then you kind of figured out your deal flow. And then really with where we're at, it's the contractor battle, right? It's always something, right? And it's also hard, right? Because we're taking on a lot of projects. I mean, we're doing a lot now, but we're preparing into the future, right? We're already getting our flips and stuff under contract for 2026 all the way out to February. So we see our runway. I kind of know where what our labor needs to look like. And if my guys start jumping ship, well, now we're back in panic mode, making sure I have labor on deck to go do these projects. And what you're saying is 100% true. I mean, it's, you burn through labor, and I haven't figured out a good answer for it, other than some of the examples I brought up of 1 of 3 things that normally happens.
Yeah.
And some of the reasons you brought up. One of my biggest things that we've shifted out of, and maybe we kind of touched on it a while ago, it's happened several times where it's usually the painter. It's always been the painter. The painter comes in and he hits you with, well, why don't you let me do your sheetrock? Well, I also know how to frame. Well, I'm also a flooring guy. Well, I can also do finished carpet. I can hang your cabinet. They can do everything, which is nice, right? Then, okay, let's go to the next house. You're going to do everything, right? Which is nice for me. I don't have to deal with scheduling all these subs. I don't have to deal with 15 different personalities. You're in charge, right? And that works really well until they decide it doesn't work well anymore and they fall off the cliff, right? So now, instead of just my painter falling off on a project, I just lost every trade at the same time, right?
Yeah.
So there's a pro and a con to it, right? Normally we in that case, we can get it done cheaper, more efficiently, less headache for me with scheduling and dealing with multiple subs. But when that guy falls off the face of the earth, we're sitting here in the middle of a project trying to line up every trade again, right? And so I think that happened to me 3 times before it finally clicked. Like, I can't do it like that. I gotta go back to my old school ways of we're gonna bring in every trade, or like my sheetrockers, right? They'll do my hanging and my taping, right? And texturing, right?
Yep.
My painters, those are my in-house guys that'll do everything, right? So we'll maybe bulk it up, but we try and compartmentalize our subs as best we can so we can prevent that from happening, because that's really put us in.
I actually
in
never
hard
thought about
places.
that as being a consequence. I was just thinking you were getting better quality work for each thing, because I know I've got one painter who's an excellent taper and another painter who's not an excellent taper, right? And so just depending on what you're doing, it's like taping's super important, maybe even more important than the painting,
100. Yeah, I think it's way more, because I mean, you can paint a wall as beautifully as you can, but if there's a terrible tape job, it's in my house right now that my main guys did, and this one I'm like, we're done taping, guys. We're done doing drywall, because every night I come home and I'm getting in the shower and I just see the seam right across the wall, and it just drives me nuts. So it's
for Christmas you guys are gonna
we're gonna get a DVD on how to tape walls. We're all gonna sit down and have a learning lesson. But,
DVD, I love it.
I think contractors are huge, and that's just an ongoing learning experience. I mean, and that's what this whole thing's been for me. Every day I learn something new, and I keep being an open mind. I'm kind of a student to life and a student to real estate, and we're always learning.
I got one other question, and we've been going for an hour 15, and we have something coming up here.
Sure. Okay.
But a really important part of flipping is your ARV, not messing that up. You got anything to say on that? Are you the guy doing like CMAs and stuff, or who's doing that for you?
Yeah, so it's weird, our business structure right now. About 80% of what I do is with my main partner. Then say 10%. Anything that I do personally and stuff, I'm going to keep as a rental. I don't have partners in any of my buy and holds except for one. That was a mistake. Buy and hold. It was a mistake flip that turned into a rental.
Yeah, gotcha.
One of those.
That happens.
It happens. But as far as our underwriting, I lean on him to underwrite a lot of our stuff, and I'm just more on the construction side, like I've said. My own stuff, I underwrite all that. If an agent or a wholesaler brings me something who wants equity in the deal, I'll underwrite it and make sure I'm very confident in it. If you're trying to touch on like what are the metrics we're looking for,
I wanted to know that actually, because I think people will be interested.
Yeah, I think it depends on the project type and the severity, right? If we're going to go to a CAT 2, it's not going to be a penny over the 70% rule, because there's so many variables, so many things that could go wrong, so many unknowns. We have to have that margin. We'll creep it up to 80% if it's more of a just a junk out and list or a light cosmetic deal. But even at that, it can get thin, right? We just did one of those.
You're going to lose at least 6-7% to closing costs between buy and sell, right?
Yeah, just on the I think I underwrite stuff at a 4.5% to exit it, and that's me listing it at cost, right?
Yeah, Sure, there you go. But
And so for those of you listening,
you still got to buy it.
And you still got to buy it, pay your points, pay your closing costs. You know, if I'm taking an assignment, we're paying both sides of the closing costs. There's
Taxes and insurance.
I have I'll put a real life deal here because I think a lot of people don't understand the fees.
Yeah.
Certainly wholesalers, right? Wholesalers, and I love my wholesalers if you guys are listening to this. So,
But yeah, they have no clue on what's actually being paid out.
at all, right? So I had a wholesaler bring me a deal. He wanted equity. He said, Ford, this thing's a grand slam. We're going to buy it for $240. It's worth $340, and it needs paint, right?
Oh, okay. It just needs paint. Okay.
Yeah.
If that's all it needed, okay, that's a little different.
Yeah, I mean, it wasn't a big rehab by any means, but so I think we put $12,000 into it, right? So just say we're into it for $255. Now, by the time it's all said and done, there was we ended up, instead of $340, we sold it for $320. Right?
Yeah.
So right there, we already dropped 7.5%, 10% in our exit, right? And then we paid all of our fees, commissions, whatever. By the time it's all said and done, we cut checks for, I think, $35,000 was our net. But we started out with a $60K net. So $25,000 to $30,000 of our gross went straight to fees.
Just vaporized, yeah.
Vaporized into thin air. Everybody, you know, the lender got rich. The title company made their money. Everybody made their money. But the whole fee component, there's a lot of fees in what we do. And I think, you know, wholesalers don't always realize that. Some wholesalers, especially if they haven't flipped a house themselves, they think, oh, you're going to buy this for 100, you're going to put 50 into it and sell for 200. Dude, you're making 50 grand. How is this even a question? No. You're making whatever.
That sounds like a break even to me.
Yeah, I mean, there's no money at the end of the day. And then they think you're crazy for wanting to be at the 70% rule. And, you know, Rashad Kennedy, you know, he talked to me a lot about this back in the day because he's a huge stickler of that 70% rule. And I was always confused on how he found so many deals that would pencil out that way. But the way he broke it down to me was pretty black and white. He said, Ford, it is very easy to be 10% off on your ARV. It's also very easy to go 10% over on a project. Well, if you go 10% over and you're 10% under on your ARV, you're left with 10% profit, right?
Yeah.
So your margins can shrink very quick in a project, and if you don't have that buffer, you can be underwater fast.
I agree. So for that reason too, there's also flat dollar figures that don't have to do with percentages. So do you have like a minimum ARV you're looking for? And I'll tell you, I used to look at houses that were ARVs close to 200,000, and I won't touch a deal like that anymore. I mean, I'd have to buy the place for 60 grand and have to do almost nothing, you know?
Yeah, we didn't really get into kind of what our niche product was, but kind of the arena we operate in is sub 400, right? And why? And I don't really care how low it goes. I mean, if it's 150 grand ARV, it'd be far fetched nowadays, but or it probably won't be a single family home. We wanted to be under that that 400K price point because that was a first time home buyer. That was a certain, it was really thinking about our end user more than anything. It's certainly over the last couple of years, there's been a lot of uncertainty in the market and not knowing where things are going to head. We just knew at that price point, there will always be a buyer for it, whether it's a first-time home buyer or maybe it was a move-up buyer who can no longer afford their $600,000 house. They got to get back into the $400,000 bracket and under. And then worst case scenario, at that price point, typically you can still make things pencil if you have to turn it into a rental. So we kind of had a few strategies in mind going into that, trying to stay in that price point. And that's where we really kept our niche of what we were going after.
Got it.
So
Got it.
Well, I think this is a good podcast. Anything else that you want to leave the folks with? Any like goals you have for the next few years? Things you want to work on personally?
I think goals, and we didn't get really into we talked a lot about our operations in today's time, but you know, it got to a point where you start building that machine and you start dealing with this overhead, and you start in a way you're forced to go do deals just to make that, you know, $15,000 profit just so you can pay your employees, right?
Yeah.
So, and that's a lot of how we did that much volume this year, because we were saying yes to everything and we were okay with smaller margins at the end of the day just so we could keep covering overhead. I'd say next year I really have two focuses, is really be more conscious about what our spreads are walking into them, our ARVs. We just got done talking about it. Be more conscious about that, A. And then B, really starting to keep more stuff. We didn't get into really my buy and hold stuff at all in this, which is fine. But, this year I really did my first my true burr.
Nice.
And that ended up just being a grand slam deal. We could do another podcast with a case study on all that stuff. But I want to keep that going, right? That was my first one I did this summer. I'm in the middle of a second one right now and under contract on what will be a third burr. That'll close here in a little bit. But really doing that. At this point, I'm here to grow the portfolio. We've, kind of got our capital up to where we can really start just playing in the arena of keeping stuff. And then at that point, there's 30 exit lanes on where we can go once we build up the portfolio. So I think there's a lot of stuff in the works and a lot of things we want to do, but I just kind of take it day by day and see where this awesome industry leads me and the people I meet. So, we're just going to keep going 110 miles an hour and doing what we know.
Well, let's do part 2 on your rentals. And also, I really want to talk about I wanted to get into areas today and we didn't, but like areas around town and your thoughts on that. So let's do part 2 kind of soon, sometime in the next
we'll
year.
have you next week, dude. This was great.
Well, as long as it's not Christmas Eve, but maybe the day after Christmas.
Real quick, are you okay leaving? I did my first burr this year. Also felt like a grand slam. Like not a single dollar left in.
It's sweet.
It's the sweetest thing ever. I'm like, this is all I want to do now.
Right.
And I wrote an offer on a potential one the other day, but I think I'm probably going to keep 25 grand in this next one. Do you have a certain metric for how much cash you're willing to leave in one, or are you really seeing full cash outs and that's what you can pull off right now?
So I'm not going to, that one I did, I got it was probably by the time, because I had some money stuck in the deal with hard money. And by the time I did my cash out, I got money back. I got probably a $75,000 to $80,000 check back into my pocket after I was done with everything. Right.
So you have equity plus 70, 80 grand?
Plus 70 to 80 grand, depending on how pencil. That was a triplex, really crazy deal. The appraisal came in funny, exactly where I asked it to be for it all to work out like that. But so now really like that one, I don't know if I'll ever have a deal like that again. So, and that's a hard one to match. If I could go do 10 more of those, sell them to me right now, wholesalers. But really it's, let's be clean. I want all my money back. Right. So that's the one I'm doing right now in North Minneapolis. I'm getting all my money back. I have another one in North Minneapolis or Minneapolis. It's not quite North Minneapolis, but that I'm doing here in probably 30 days we'll close on. That should be a clean exit. So I think my baseline is get all my money out. If I can be into it for zero, that's what I'm going for.
Yeah. Cool.
If not, we can flip it. If not, we can, just wholesale it off. But
you're in the business, and I think it's a little fair to say, like, you get access to deals that other people generally don't see. But having said that, there are deals out there, folks. For those of you who are, like, waiting for better times, they're not necessarily around the corner.
Completely.
When rates lower, I think you're going to have a lot harder time finding burrs, personally. Not, even though the rates will be lower, the prices will be higher, and that will make getting the cash back out really difficult. And there'll be a lot more buyers, so you'll be competing even at a wholesale level against different people. And the time's now. The time to really buy properties is today.
And I agree with that 100%. And I think when you're getting started, I know you're trying to wrap this up, but
no, we're fine.
When you're getting started, it's almost, you don't want to walk into a bad deal, right? You have to be educated about what you're walking into and are we going to be okay? Like, worst case scenario, can we break even? That's not a good business plan, but it's hard because you don't know the people. You don't know the people controlling the deals, and you're certainly not their first call, right? Where once you start building a reputation, and I'm not saying I'm Mr. Ford, I get access to everything, but at a certain point, people see you performing.
Yeah,
and that
absolutely.
means so much in this business, that you do what you say you're going to do and you're going to perform on a deal. And when I call Ford, I know he's going to give me an offer. He's going to hold his word. He's going to close on this, and it's going to be in 10 days, right?
Yep.
That means more than that wholesaler making an extra 20 grand selling it to somebody else, right? Live that movie. And that's how we run our business. We have 3 or 4 people still to this day that buy 90% of our stuff. We could make more money elsewhere. We don't want to because we don't want the headache. So where I'm going with this is building up your track record gets you access to more opportunities. It gets you access to better deals. Right?
Yep.
Well, Ford, you and I have each been doing this for 5-6 years or so. I guess I've been investing for 10, and I finally did my first cash out bird this year, and you did your first one this year too. So that's just goes to show what you just said. It's because of the connections and the trust and the experience. And I think there's a lot of people looking for their first deal who think they're going to be able to pull that off.
And knowing how to keep costs down. Because if you would have hired just a retail contractor, you'd have paid double and you would have not got your cash out.
Yeah.
You know, I mean,
No,
it's the
100%.
whole thing. You have to have the whole thing. Yeah.
You got to go, I hate to say it, but I mean, that's how I did. You learned a lot of hard lessons in this business, right?
Totally.
And you learned them the hard way. I learned so many hard lessons. I'm still, today I'm going to go out and learn a hard lesson. I don't know. I hate to put a damper on my day already, but there's going to be something to learn today, right? And you're just, it's the trials and tribulations of this business. You're going to go through and you're going to get beat up. You're going to go grind your face across the pavement. But through every step of that, you're getting stronger, you're getting better, you're getting more powerful, you're getting better capitalized, you're making better connections with contractors, you're getting work done cheaper, you're meeting the players, moving the deals, all that, right? And you start building those relationships. And at a certain point, all the pieces start to come together, and deals like we did this summer start to become more often and happen more often. But for that to be your first deal, to go knock out a Grand Slam Burr, I'm not saying it can't be done, but the stars really have to align.
It's just luck.
It's luck.
At that point, it's luck. Yeah.
Right. Just go out and do a couple deals. Go make $2,000 flipping a house. That's what I did. It sucked, right? Like, it took a long time, but it'll lead into great things if you just keep your head down and keep moving. So
Awesome, Ford. We can't wait to have you back on the podcast. This was a good episode.
boom.
Thanks
so
for being
much.
here, dude.
Absolutely.
Well, I really enjoyed that conversation with Ford. I felt bad cutting him short. You know, we're doing 2 today, and I'm not a professional podcaster. I can't be having 2-hour conversations with 2 different people.
Yeah.
Maybe someday when we get that ExpressVPN sponsorship. You know?
All right, there we go.
Or what other
Or no,
AG1.
AG1.
AG1, are you watching?
Yeah, if they sponsor us, maybe, right?
Yeah. I would do this. I do this all day long.
Yeah,
Instead of the SHIT we have to deal with.
I mean, since it's the end of the year and this is kind of like a close to an end of the year podcast, it has been fun. I sometimes people will ask me about the podcast, and one of the first thing I always come to is it's really been fun to meet the guests of the podcast and find out their stories. Like, inspiring is one way to put it, but I think really just insightful and almost comforting is another way, right? And just eye-opening to see all the different ways people are involved in real estate. It's been more than I would have imagined in terms of just like what I've gotten out of it personally. So,
Yeah, I'm learning a lot as I sit here at the desk asking questions. And it's connected us with some people that we've been able to help invest, right? There's a handful of fans of this podcast. If you're listening to this, you know, my cell phone number is readily available on the internet. You can text me. So is Tim's.
it's in the show notes, at least to a lot of the episodes. I don't know if it's every episode, but if you're going through we've got our contact information in the show notes. It's also on TwinCitiesRealEstateInvesting.com, which is the ugliest website out there. Don't worry about that. You can still contact us on it.
It's on our to-do list.
We got it, and I bought I'll tell the story real quick. I bought like one of those themes, and the theme was beautiful. And I'm like, oh, this is perfect. And we'll change the colors, but it'll be ideal after that. And you know, it was just like, I don't know. It was not what I thought it was.
It is what it is. I don't think most of you are just looking at YouTube or Spotify right now. So I would say don't even go to the website. If you're YouTube,
But you can find us on it. And eventually,
Yeah.
I mean, that is a resource we need to build out at some point. So if someone, you know, wants to take it over as a project.
Well, do you ever, sometimes I'll talk to a friend who, you know, didn't use me to be their real estate agent because they figure I'm just doing like important things, you know?
Oh.
And not that whatever makes me sound
I've had people say, are you too busy? And no, I'm not too busy.
Yeah.
For you. Yeah.
Yeah. Or like, well, I didn't think you'd want to work with someone who'd never done this before. And like, no, guys.
And
Like,
most of the people we work with have never done it before.
we work
right?
with beginners every day. Yeah. But I think that is whatever. It's something I hear multiple times a year.
Mm-hmm.
So I just thought I'd throw it out there. We're here to support you guys. If you need someone, a good drain, a fan of the podcast reached out to me the other day because they have a clogged drain. Right?
there
And
you go.
I know who not to hire. I know who to hire.
Yeah.
So we're here to help you guys. And just want to make that clear. But it's been a great year. Yeah. I mean, we've recorded 52 episodes.
Yeah,
Or we
absolutely.
posted them 52.
Yes, we have. And we've got I think I've got some people in mind for next year, some new guests and stuff like that, but we are looking for people. So if you know someone who's got an, interesting story, interesting insight, specializes investing in a particular area of the Twin Cities, all those kind of things we're looking for. As you probably have already seen, we're looking for big and small. We're looking for the full range. This isn't supposed to be a winner takes all like BP, or if you don't have 1,000 units in your first year, you don't qualify kind of thing. It's more like, we want to get every aspect of investing and we want to get all sides of it and all experience levels.
I mean, who do you think our most popular guest was this year?
The ones that people told me about the most have been Doomy and Kevin.
Nice.
Those are the two that I've heard the most of. Obviously some of the people are more recent. Oh, and early in the year, let me think about this a second. There was someone else who early on had a lot. We heard a lot from. I'm trying to think of who that was. Yeah. Anyway, I guess.
Well, I guess important. I was trying. I think Kevin was. You? I think Kevin was our most popular. Technically, he has the most views on YouTube.
Oh, does he?
And he is the newest that we interviewed. So, let's see.
Yeah.
It's just a point.
Good point. It's all about, it is about approachable and everything else. And that is what this show is supposed to be about, where I guess, the other thing is the longer you do it and you meet people doing all kinds of different investing. I know a way that works for investing, but I also know there's a bunch of other ways that work as well. Right. And that's something you can kind of learn through all this. Right.
I'm just looking through. We got to get the friggin' screen, Tim.
Yeah.
Why don't we make a to-do list? And, the holidays is a great time for an agent and a lender to work on the business rather in. So we got to schedule time to do that. But I'm just looking through. And if you're watching this on YouTube, what we're going to be doing soon is we're going to have a big screen. We're going to bring back Deal Analysis Live, right? Yeah. And we're going to do more Adam and Tim episodes with data and actually getting into the kind of stuff that I think a lot of people want to see. And if we have a big screen, then we can superimpose it on the YouTube. Right. And that was always the vision for doing all this.
It was. The problem is I can't see his screen, and if I've got one on it doesn't work real good right now for me to be involved with the screen.
Yeah.
In most cases.
But it's coming, and I think that's going to drastically improve the amount of value we can give our YouTube audience, I think. So if you're not subscribed, make sure you subscribe. But I'm looking through the last year, Surviving the 11 Unit from Hell with Tyler Nash.
Yeah.
That was a really good one.
Are you on YouTube or are you on the podcast side?
I'm on Spotify right now.
Okay.
Live and Flipping with Adam Witter.
Okay.
That was a good one. I'm just picking my friends and I like the most.
Right. These are the people he goes out to dinner with and hangs out with their kids.
Richard Ochoa. We don't hang out, but that was a really awesome episode. That was in July.
So you're going through your favorites, not these are not the most listened to or anything?
I'm not looking at most listened to at all. Oh, 22 years, one marriage, and lots of rentals with Tim and Nicole Swierczek. That was a really good episode. So anyways, check out the back catalog, you guys, if you haven't already. Yeah,
absolutely. Let us know what you like. Let us know if you know people who are would be good, interesting guests. And thank you so much for listening. Thank you for sharing. We know people are sharing. Please keep it up. We'd love to increase the audience and bring more people into the in-person. I love the internet and all that, but I want to meet you at our meetups and have you meet the other investors, right? Meet the other guests of our podcast and stuff.
Yeah. Or you go to TwinCitiesRealEstateInvesting.com/schedule and you can meet with us directly on a Zoom. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
See you next time.
That's it for today's show. You can visit the TwinCitiesRealEstateInvesting.com website for show notes, tips, tricks, and other local real estate investing information. Adam and Tim would like to meet with you. To schedule a one-on-one meeting with either Adam or Tim, go to TwinCitiesRealEstateInvesting.com/schedule.